You're listening to an AINC original podcast. We believe you don't have to do life without a compass. Let us be your guide on this amazing journey. Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Hello and welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss. I'm your host, Kim Wardlow. Thanks for tuning in today. Thank you for the feedback you've been sending us. We really appreciate it. If you haven't given us feedback but would like to, just call us at 720-712-8856. Again, 720-712-8856. Or you can send us an email at feedback@aftersight.org. So feedback, FEEDBACK at AFTERSIGHT.org. And we really appreciate that feedback that you're giving us. Before we get to today's guest, I just want to give a little recap of what we talked about last week with Tamara and Unsightly Opinions. We went through talking about this month, we're talking about cleaning and home organization and setting up your home and all those types of things. And so she did a deep dive into different techniques to use with vision loss when you're cleaning your house, and even some tips on how things might be set up in your home as well. But we really focused her last episode on cleaning different places in your house and getting yourself organized when you're in a home already or an apartment already. But and you know, that's the spring cleaning theme that we're doing, but it's also a time of year when folks are moving and getting into new homes. And so that's kind of what we're going to move into today. Our next guest is going to talk about moving into a new space. In fact, his first space, first apartment that's totally his own, and how that process worked, and hopefully give us some tips and things that he has learned. So I want to welcome our own Evan Starnes to NLVL. Welcome, Evan.
Hey, welcome. It's great to be here. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Super. Well, do you want to tell folks, if they don't already know you from Blind Level Tech, what you do here at Aftersight?
Yeah, sure. So yes, I am the soon-to-be co-host of the show Blind Level Tech, the show about technology under the umbrella of blindness and low vision. And yeah, I am Aftersight's audio production technician. My job title is long. People call me the audio wizard. I essentially focus a lot of my efforts on our original programming, our newspapers and magazines and grocery store ads and the like, and make sure that it's coming, that it sounds good, that the quality is good, and that our volunteers, our 100+ volunteers, are comfortable and that they're submitting quality audio. So yeah, that's primarily my job. I do some stuff on the side, PSA creation, work with our broadcast, and yeah, I host or co-host BLT as well. So that's kind of a little bit about what I do here, and so it's a great time as always.
Great. So not only is he our BLT co-host, but he's behind the scenes and other programming you might be listening to if you're listening to any of our audio editions of publications, and he's great working with our volunteers. So thank you, Evan.
You've heard my voice too on our promos and stuff, in the past. So yeah, of course.
Yes, might be a familiar voice to folks. So, but today we're going to talk about your experience. You've recently, in the last couple of months, moved into your own apartment. Mm-hmm. And talk about kind of that experience. How did you even begin that search?
Well, I began that search very originally and initially with a desire to move first. That's what started it. And it kind of was it went from a very gradual to a very sudden, like, oh my gosh, okay, we're doing this right now. It's legit. So initially what I started doing was kind of trying to evaluate what I wanted to look for what I had, possession wise and stuff, and, what I could also afford, and the area that I wanted to live in too, because I wanted to make sure that when I moved into a new area that it was going to be safe, and, that I'd be able to walk around, and the crime rates were good, but also that I was close to, transit or, infrastructure so that I could get things like groceries and the like. So I very first started, honestly, just kind of with a rental I guess you could call it a rental finding app or something like that. So I exclusively used Zillow just because it was the one I had heard of. Accessibility wise, I'd give it maybe a 8.5 out of 10. It's okay. But then I kind of narrowed my search down to exactly what I was looking for. And so in my case, I was looking for something with 1 bedroom because the only other option smaller than a 1 bedroom would be a studio, which would not be very large for me. And I also wanted something in a good area. So, and then I did under a particular price range, because if you do a minimum price range, you're going to get a lot of really high price ones there too. So I tried to do that. And then it was kind of honestly just a game of wait and see. And so yeah, very specifically, I put like allows pets, doesn't, has air conditioning. You can even put like has in-unit laundry, or whatever you were looking for. Just keep in mind that the more critiques or the more things that you look for, odds are the more expensive the place you're looking for is going to get. So, if you want to move into a place with a swimming pool and an exercise room versus, something without, you'd probably be spending at least, I'd estimate, an extra $100, $200 extra just for that kind of amenity. But yeah, then it was just wait and see. And Zillow is nice because when you save a search, it's always searching for you. And anytime something new comes up, you can have it send you push notifications or emails, saying, hey, there's a new place in your search, and it'll give you the details, and then you can decide whether you want to jump on it or not. Now, the biggest and hardest and most nerve-wracking thing is deciding whether you want to kind of jump on that and, request a tour of the place or not, because, you have to plan that out. But if it meets your criteria and, if just kind of follow your gut feeling. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to be this could be, a potentially a really nice, home for the next however many years you decide.
Right. But I would think that would be important if you, had a short list. Obviously you wouldn't necessarily go in person to see everyone, but if you had a short list of those, I would think it would be important to actually go and check out the area in person.
Yeah, that too. And especially as like somebody who's totally blind, don't just check out when you're done checking out the apartment or home, check out the area around it, go for a little walk, walk up or down a few streets, kind of check out if there are any businesses around, and really just see what it's like to navigate around that area, because it's going to be a little depending on the person, it might be a little bit more challenging if you're living in an area where you don't have a whole lot going. It'll be harder to get to and from your home, especially if you're using rideshare or public transit. And, just trying to do things like get groceries or whatever, it's just going to be a little bit more extraneous, I guess. But
did you take someone with you? When you looked at different apartments, or did you do all that on your own?
I took somebody with me, and that could really be anybody, a friend, family members. I really, and this will just make your life easier, I would highly recommend, if you've got, sighted friends with cars or whatever that can drive you to the destination, I'd really recommend it, just because they can find things that would take a little longer for me to find. For instance, I'd taken a friend of mine, and she found like a a particular spot in the wall behind my toilet that if I hadn't specifically felt behind the toilet, I wouldn't have noticed. And it looked pretty gnarly looking. So I'm glad she found that. And, it made it easier to look for things like, where's the thermostats and is there an above counter or an above stove microwave, or am I going to have to buy one? Or is there a dishwasher? It was just a little easier to kind of walk through and point things out. At the same time, too, when you're checking out a place, seriously, like if the manager, whoever you're touring the place with, is kind of pushy and trying to rush you through the tour, that's kind of what I'd consider a bit of a red flag. And you might want to look potentially elsewhere. But if they're super patient and kind of let you check everything out and are, more, they work with you more, that's a good sign. In my particular example, I kind of had a very lucky strike and scheduled a tour, and the place that I was looking for was the place that I wanted, and the manager was already really nice. So I don't know. I feel like I personally kind of lucked out, but
yeah. And so then that helped with the actual application process. So once you found it, did you still have to fill out an application for the specific apartment?
Oh yeah. So yeah, once you find the place, so you've checked. Let's say you've checked out a few places, and that's the thing too. If you're, most times nowadays when you're looking at a place in at least particularly Zillow, I'm sure some other applications allow you to do this. There's a request a tour button, and often that will bring you to, at least in my case, it'll bring you to the apartment's website itself. And you'll have to actually fill out an application on the apartment's website of, when you want to look at the unit, what unit you want to look at, and then you'll have to schedule it that way. And then you're going to run into this will actually be a really good way to see how their website is accessibility wise, because
right. I was wondering about that, if that next step then was accessible as well.
It really depends on the apartment, because you don't want to move into a place where their application and their stuff is inaccessible, because then when you're actually living there, you might have some hard time, paying rent, or you're going to have to do a lot more advocating and working with them to make their stuff accessible, or it's just going to be a lot more work. On your part. Not a bad thing though, because it'll mean one more place is accessible. But yeah, once you fill out, at least from my experiences, you fill out that application to go check out the place. You set a date and a time. Once you're there though, I'd seriously highly recommend, if you can, bring like a note taker or some sort of device to take notes with, and pay attention to things that you find around the place, like even little things like, does the control panel on the stove, is it digital or is it fully analog? Well, and that therefore means, am I going to have to label it with bump dots or braille it, or am I even going to have to label it at all? Like, just look at seriously everything and write it all down, because it'll make it a lot easier to kind of plan what you have to do, besides moving your stuff in to, adapt the place to your needs.
So once you found the place, how was the actual moving process? Because I know that can be stressful and quite a process too. I know my first couple of places, I just have friends help me move. But I don't know if you had friends help you move, if you hired movers, how you actually tackled the move itself.
I will acknowledge this for anybody that has gone through it. It's stressful. It's gonna be a lot of things happening all at once, and you just kind of gotta. My advice for anybody is, you want to at least try to get at least two people to help you, because if it's just you and another person, it's going to take a long time and it's going to be pretty tough. I was fortunate enough to have both the luxury of friends and family to help me move. You could hire movers, but they are pretty expensive, and you really kind of want to vet them and make sure that they're good people and that they're going to respect you and your things, because that's what they're doing and moving. But if you have friends, I have a friend, for instance, that had a Toyota Tundra, it was big enough to move some of my stuff. And my family had, a large truck. If you have friends and family that have that already, seriously try and jump on that, because it's a lot easier than hiring movers. Now, when you're actually, ready to move out, definitely establish a day that you want to move out, and try really to do try to do 95% of your move, of getting everything from point A to point B all in a day, because it'll just feel so much better. And then you'll already have your, all of your stuff in your new location, and you'll be able to get it all organized. And I'd always say, try to get everything kind of gathered and packed up and ready to go at least a week before you want to move out, if you can, because it'll make that experience so much less stressful on you. You'll be able to just throw everything in cars and trucks and kind of get moved over.
So did you do any kind of pre-planning, once you had the contract on your apartment, but to look at that space, and were you moving furniture that you already had, and so had to look at what fits where, or purchasing things that would go into that space to try to plan out your space? Because when you're renting, some of that space it is a certain way. It's not like you're building from scratch. So
right.
Having to adapt your belongings somewhat to the space itself.
I would recommend it, if you can, once you've gotten the place and once you have the keys in your hand and you can go and check it out, go do that, and kind of, I would recommend, especially if you've got the technology to do it, measure, especially the big things that if you've already got them, I'd say a bed, and, if you have a dresser or a desk, definitely measure all those things out and really ultimately decide where you want them. Because if you're moving from a 3-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom apartment or what have you, needless to say, you're going to have to probably do a bit of downsizing too. I didn't, so I really don't feel like I can speak on that exactly. But, what I did before I moved everything is I took measurements of the bed and my desk and dresser. I didn't have a couch or anything like that, which made it a lot easier. So, but I ended up getting pretty lucky and just was able to basically move everything. You're going to have to obviously disassemble it too. That's the other thing is you really want to have some tools on hand. If you don't, you're going to need to get some, because if you haven't moved things like a bed or what have you before, it's not as simple as just throwing the piece of furniture into a big truck. You really kind of want to take it apart. I had to take my entire bed apart and then move it and then put it back together in the apartment. And if I didn't have friends and family and tools, that would have been a lot more difficult of a process.
Well, I know when people move out of an apartment, you're required to clean, and a landlord obviously will do, clean carpets and things like that. When you moved in, did you have to do any cleaning before you moved your things in?
No, I got very lucky. The place I'd moved into was pretty much spotless. In fact, they had just renovated the apartment.
Oh, nice.
And, all new flooring and everything. So there wasn't really a whole lot I had to do. But I would always say, if you're in doubt, really look at everything first and see what you need to clean up. If they make sure they, bother to clean the toilets and the bathtubs and stuff too, because that's quite important before you move in. It'll just, again, make your process it'll make the process a lot easier.
So you already had an idea, as your friends are helping, your family are helping you move things in, where things are going. I think that's always great. Not just, it's a bed, so obviously it's going in the bedroom, but if you kind of know where it's going to sit. It's
going on X wall.
Yeah, because those things can be difficult to move once they're put together and heavy if you decide they need to be elsewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I had already had a plan of, I would like the bed on this wall. I want my desk in the same room on the opposite wall by the door, and my dresser in the corner. And then I had a little TV stand that matched the dresser, but I ended up putting that out in the living room. Kind of just know where you want everything, because it's totally 100% your decision to make too. People, they might, put things, where they think they'll go, but often, you'll have people asking you like, hey, where do you want this bed? Or where do you want the dresser? Or how do you want it? At least from my experiences.
Right. Well, hopefully they would ask you where you would want things.
They should.
They should. That's a good thing to do. You're the one who's living there. So you've been in your space, your apartment now for a few months. What's been your biggest adjustment? Just living on your own for the first time and really getting things set up. I know, the big move day, you get all the big pieces in, but you still have boxes to unpack and all that, and that can take a while.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so the biggest adjustment is probably going to be if you've been living with family or whatever for, however many years, it's going to be a huge adjustment to going to do stuff on your own, because you're calling the shots. You decide when you do what you do and how you do it. So you decide when you do the laundry, how much you want to do and how you do it. You decide what day is a good day to clean your apartment or house or whatever. And, that's 100% your decision. And what I definitely say to anybody moving for the first time, if you're working, I didn't do this and I kind of wish I had. Seriously, even if you're moving on a weekend, take a day or two off, because you're going to need it to adjust to your new place. Now, as far as boxes, that's going to be a thing that you're going to have to contend with. You can get all your boxes and stuff unpacked in a day, but it's going to be exhausting. So I would always recommend get all the big stuff situated. Just take a day to do that. And then, really honestly, as far as unpacking, boxes, getting everything situated, ultimately really depends on the person. What was easiest for me was, I organized everything into their own individual boxes. I had a box for things for my desk, a box of candles and scented things, a box of electronics. And I pretty much just took it one box at a time, and one day at a time. And that made it super easy to really figure out where I wanted specific things from only that box. And, I had a day to really kind of just organize that particular section, and it didn't feel like I was overwhelmed with a whole bunch of junk and trying to situate it all and, manage a big, giant, chaotic mess.
Did you have to do anything different as you were trying to organize, purchase any kind of organizational tools or anything like that, just being in a different space?
I definitely did. And that's kind of another good point too, I'm glad that you brought up, is that every person is going to have a different way they want their things to look. There's no one way to organize. How I organize might not be how you like to organize. So, really kind of try and figure out exactly what you have first. Because I was lucky and had a whole bunch of tubs and boxes and things already at my disposal. But really kind of figure out how you like to lay things out, and try a few different things. You're not going to, at least most likely, you're not going to settle the first time you organize things. So, for instance, when I was a big thing was actually putting silverware and kitchen utensils and accessories in respective drawers.
I was going to ask you about the kitchen, because I think that can be when you're in a different kitchen and you're used to things being in a certain place, and do you have that same drawer right beside the stove or whatever it might be, having to reestablish that? I always think the kitchen can be one of the more complicated places to organize.
Yeah, and at least from my experiences, it doesn't matter what kitchen you go. If you're moving from one kitchen to another, you're going to totally have to reestablish everything, because at least pretty much any kitchen is laid out a little differently. So, for instance, I thought I had a good drawer to put towels and oven mitts and stuff like that, but it turns out it was a little too small, and actually would have been better suited to like longer spoons and tongs and spatulas and the like. But it took a month of trying to work with the current setup I had, and having to cram everything into one drawer before I kind of made the decision, like, I think let me just see how how these utensils fit in this drawer, and then realizing, oh wow, that's a whole lot better. Why didn't I just think of that before? And it's kind of just a matter of, like, if you like to specifically have, and if you're able to have, like, your oven mitts and stuff right next to the oven versus, on the side or in a different location, it really kind of just, it's trial and error, really, is what it is.
Yeah. And it's okay to readjust. I think that's good
Absolutely.
for people to remember, and not to get frustrated, especially if it's your first place.
Especially your first place, you're going to have to do a lot of readjusting. I'm just going to be completely upfront, because, I mean, if you've never lived on your own before, this is your place. You get to really make it your own. It's part of it's part of who you are, pretty much. It might be, and honestly, once you're established, there's nothing wrong with even every, I know people that move things around every 6 months because, you get bored of it. That's totally okay too. There's nothing to be frowned upon. And really a huge point I'd like to make and emphasize is there's no one right way, and there never will be.
Yeah. The most important thing is that it works for you.
Yeah. It's like getting, a new phone or whatever. You want to, customize that to you and to how you work. It's the same with a new home.
Well, Evan, thank you for sharing with us your very recent experience of being a first time on your own, setting up your own place, because I think it's a very unique experience, but it's a great one to go through. It's exciting to have your own space, and you can have it reflect your personality and be organized and decorated and everything how
Absolutely.
you want it. So that's always a really exciting thing. I think your first place on your own.
Absolutely. And I'll say one particular thing I had learned from this experience is, as much as I wanted to have everything planned out and pieced out and orchestrated, so it happened, as much as I wanted to have it all planned out, there's still going to be things that come up that you're going to need to navigate that you might not have necessarily gone through before. So,
well, super. Well, congratulations on being in your new apartment, and thank you for giving us some information, and maybe folks that are considering moving out into their own individual space as well. Just some tips for that. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I'd highly recommend it.
So next week, we're back with Tamara, but instead of talking about cleaning, we're going to continue on the theme of moving. But she also recently moved, but she moved into a place that she purchased and really went in and tailored it, did some construction work there and really tailored it for her needs. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that when you have that opportunity, and again, weighing what you might want with costs, because that's always a factor, of course, but talking with her about things that she did, how she incorporated technology into her new home. So we'll be continuing on with our spring cleaning and moving theme, but moving from looking at moving into a rental to moving into a home that she owns, and some of the extra things she's able to do since that's her own property. So we hope that you'll join us for that. And get some more tips. Again, if you have any questions or feedback, please give us a call at 720-712-8856 or email us at feedback@aftersight.org. And I just want to put a little thought in your ear, not to forget that we will be having our Bringing Print to Life hike coming up, not till July. So it's a little bit early, but I know summer schedules get packed really quickly. So July 27th, be thinking about joining us for the hike. We will be at Myers Gulch here in Boulder County. We'd love to have you join us. And you can find out more information about that on our website, which is www.aftersight.org. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that this information has helped you navigate your life with vision loss.